fan of thrillers, and I feel like this one like ticks all of the boxes. But what was your initial reaction when you read the script?
Well, I loved it because it was because of the initial seed of the idea that Tom Evans had when he wrote it. He was inspired by the film Scorsese's film Casino, and the just this one scene where Joe Pesci gets driven into out into this cornfield, and he's met by this mob of baseball bats, and he's killed there, and it's just an absolutely brutal sequence. But Tom was struck by the notion of what would that ride be like between those two men, where a character is driven unwittingly to his demise, and what would the anguish be for the driver, and how would those conversations go? And I thought that was brilliant. And so when I read the script, I was like, man, this is really really cool. And I also really love that the characters are just so there's such a contrast between the two. One is obviously dealing with you know grief and he's a very intense and closed character, and the other is very talkative and energetic and young, and there's just this clash between them at first that I think is quite enjoyable for the audience. They're just like kind of in driver's shoes listening to this young kid talk endlessly and drive him crazy, and then their relationship develops, and you're kind of now you're in from the beginning and aware of what driver's moral dilemma is.
It's so exciting to watch on the screen. I actually watched it 2 nights in a row, back to back.
Oh, cool.
Now, were there any exciting moments or like memorable moments on set that you can share with us?
Well, we shot this in 15 days, 16 days. Yeah, just unheard of, insane schedule on less than $3 million. And so I had to do all my own driving. So that was pretty exciting. The fact that I never crashed that car, with all of those chase sequences and action sequences that we had to do, I was very, very concerned about that because we didn't have a stunt team, and so I knew that I would have to do all the driving. And and I have Jamie in the passenger seat beside me. He's this young kid. It's a classic car. There's no seat belts. There's no airbags. And I got a cameraman in the back, and I'm responsible for not crashing this car. And we had a few close calls. It was pretty wild because it was at night, of course, and the rain. There was lots of rain, and so the roads were very slick. And there was one scene where I went to do this hairpin turn and missed my street and drove through this fence. That's not in the film. That was just an outtake. But other than that, we didn't have any accidents or issues. But it was just, your heart was just pounding through your chest the whole time. And so that added to the electricity of the scenes, of course, because we got no time to do a lot of retakes. We're on a very, very tight, fast schedule. And so everybody had to be, very focused.
That's intense. Like I get nervous when I'm just trying to like do a
Yeah,
market of space. I
I
can't
know.
imagine doing that.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the car plays like an important role in the movie.
Yeah.
If you had to pick your ultimate dream or favorite car, what would it be?
Well, I owned one. I had a 1965 GTO, and it was reef turquoise. It was gorgeous. And that was my daily driver in Los Angeles when I first moved there in my 20s. And I just sort of felt like, why do I have this muscle car in Los Angeles, driving to my meetings? And it just it felt a little bit irresponsible, this big gas guzzling muscle car. And so I sold it years ago. And I so regret selling that car. I loved that car. And but this was a close second, the '70s Chevelle. It was so beautiful, so marauding, like the sound of that engine and just that the black paint job, all blacked out. And yeah, it really was like a third character in the piece for us. Like I always call it like this fire breathing dragon that they're riding. And what I loved is that the car it has its own identity. It acts kind of as this catalyst that bonds the two of them because they would otherwise never bond. They would, driver doesn't want to bond with passenger. But it's because passenger asks about the car, that it's sort of like driver's weakness, that he loves this car. It's his probably the greatest possession, the only possession in his life aside from his son. And so he's very protective of it, but it allows these themes of fatherhood and morality and family bonds to come up between them. And so as the ride develops, their relationship develops as well through the car.
Definitely, you can see like how everything progresses from what he was told to do and how it, the
Yeah.
situation changes in the end, and morality and all of that comes to play in it.
Yeah. I
Now,
mean, are you a mom?
yes, I have a 4-year-old, and I actually also
Yeah.
have a wiener dog who is over here yelling in the background.
Yeah, my dogs have been barking too, but I have a daughter as well. And so for me, that was what I locked onto in the characters. I could identify with his moral dilemma. Like, what do you do? Like, and I hope that the audience is left with that too. Like, what would I do if it was my son or daughter, or deliver this young man to the boss?
Yeah, I have like I have a guilty conscience about the smallest things, so I could never go through with that. Like, the
And,
smallest thing would playing in my head from like 10 years ago, like, oh my God, when I was a kid and I took that candy, like I might get put in trouble for that.
yeah.
That stuff still plays with me. Now I have a question just for you personally.
Yeah.
Throughout your career, if you had to pick one role that you really think impacted you the most, which one would it be?
Well, I think without a doubt, Saving Private Ryan, simply because I had done a couple small films, but I'd mostly spent I don't know, 5 years doing sort of television work. Bryan Cranston and I had done a pilot for Disney and a few things that didn't really take off, but mostly sort of working in television. And I hadn't really stepped on a big studio film set before, and it was just such a life-changing experience for me to experience Steven Spielberg's cinematic um, mastery at its highest. Like, when you walked onto those sets, they were just so incredible. As an actor, you didn't have to act, you were there. And it was a real gift working with not only him but Tom Hanks and the rest of the cast. But Steven just created such a magnificent film set. And um and I think I walked away from that, you know learning so much about performance and filming and discipline on set, and watching iconic characters like, or actors like Tom Hanks, and how they handled themselves and how they worked, and the professionalism. And so that really informed me. I mean, you stumble and fall along the way in your career. I mean, I've made disastrous choices and good choices along the way. It's not like it protected me from that, but it taught me a lot of valuable lessons. Uh,
And then just to wrap it up, being in this industry, being, I would say, an icon, how do you keep grounded and kind of like stay true to yourself while, being in these great productions and being a part of Hollywood?
I'm a dual citizen, so after I finish filming, I'll come back to Canada. Dual citizen between the United States and Canada, and I'll come to Canada. And we live a very rural life here. We have a big orchard and a garden and dogs and cats, and we live on the ocean. So I hunt and I fish, and yeah, it's a very natural sustenance type of life we live here, as opposed to, say, big city life, which is beautiful as well, has all of its own qualities. And uh, but I think that's what helps. And my wife is I think who really grounds me, because it's like, as soon as I come home, it's like, oh, here's the garbage, this needs to be done, mow the lawn. Like, it's just real life. And we're not like so rich and wealthy that we have, like, we live in a mansion or have maids and chefs. It's like just a normal life that we live. And so that can't help but ground you when you've got to take care of your children and your animals, and you clean the house. And yeah.
Yeah, we live like in the valley area of Los Angeles, but I have like a pet duck too, and it's just like I love
Oh, cool.
animals, water, all of that. Like it keeps me sane from everything when I have to go into,
Yeah. Yeah, animals are wonderful that way. They do have a way of grounding you, especially here where we are in the winter. We're just coming out of the winter here in British Columbia, up near Vancouver, and the dogs come in the house. They're always muddy, and wet. And so, you got to towel them off or give them a bath, and you're just constantly, cleaning and fixing and chasing. And so, yeah, it's a great place to come and just realize that you're not so special, buddy.
Yeah, it's raining really bad right now, and he has made the entire
Oh,
house wet, and he does not like to use the bathroom outside, and he's so annoyed.
well, how does your duck, is the duck indoor? Are
So
the,
the duck, when he was a baby, he was indoor, and then he kind of imprinted on my dad, and then my dad built him his whole hut thing outside.
I
And
love,
like obviously like the rain doesn't really like make their feathers wet, so he always like comes up to the door and tries to come inside. But obviously the second ducks eat, everything comes out. So he has to live
yeah,
out. He loves it outside, but him and the wiener dog play fight all the time. The
that's
wiener
awesome.
dog is very jealous, and he's a mini wiener dog, so he's just very sensitive about where his attention goes.
I love it. Oh, that's so cool. That they're friends? Are they?
They're friends, but like you can tell that like they secretly like each other, but they always like fight. But not like in a bad way. Like you can tell they're free
Yeah.
fighting because they never like hurt each other or anything. But the wiener dog will cry if I like say the duck's name. But the second I say Roger, the wiener dog will like be like, oh my God, where's my attention?
Yeah,
Really, the
we
duck
have
knows his name too. So he when you
we
say Roger, the duck will like come and follow you and look for you. So it's interesting when your duck will.
I've been fascinated by so many videos, animal videos online, just like absolutely stunning when people take the time to really love an animal and make them part of the family. Just these incredible personalities develop that you would just be like, I didn't know a pig had those kind of emotions, or I didn't know a gorilla or a whatever, like a lion or whatever, a groundhog. Like some of the pets that people have that they have domesticated, and either because they were abandoned, they found them, or rescued them. It's just remarkable. Like it makes you realize, like they're incredibly emotional. Like my dogs are very, very intuitive, very emotional, and very attentive to what's going on. It's amazing.
I know, I feel like they're almost more intuitive than humans sometimes because even just the fact that he can hear something that miles away, like somebody didn't knock on the door for like 5 to 10 minutes and he already knew. And I'm like, what? I would have never heard that.
That's
But I'm so sorry. I think I went over quite a bit.
No, it's all good. I think you were our last anyway, so it was a real pleasure chatting with you.
Great, you. It was so great meeting you and honor meeting you. And it was such a joy to speak with you.